Yo, what's going on, guys? And today, of course, I want to talk about Egor Demin, the wonderkin from Real Madrid. If you guys don't recall, he was a guy that I was a really big fan of coming out of the draft. He was someone that I thought was arguably the best passer. And we spoke about it at length. How many guys are 6'10" and are able to pass, dribble, and shoot like that? And I've said this time in and time out again, that I believe shooting, as someone who has literally fixed his jump shot over had one of my college roommates who had college offers to go, like Stephen F. Austin, Central Arkansas, and other schools, tweak my jumper. Then I watched like a year and a half ago a Nick Nurse shoot like a pro, get the fingertip drill, learn how to go off the air hole, small things like that, to become like going from a guy who wanted to be Dennis Rodman his whole life till he was like 20 years old to now being a high level shooter. And so when someone's weakest skill is passing and shooting, or my apology, is shooting, and they're really good at passing and dribbling already, it makes it almost like, okay, he has the high IQ, he has the feel for the game, he's almost 6'10", he's a point guard, and the biggest swing skill shooting. And if you guys saw the game yesterday, this is a guy who was coming out and looking like shooting isn't going to be a question mark. And if we look at the current depth chart of the Brooklyn Nets right here, shout out my work, hoopshype.com. Go to hoopshype.com for all of your information. By the way, Club Mate, this was not worth $40 for a 12-pack. My family's from Argentina. Well, my dad was born in Italy, in Pescara, to a Adriana Celani, who's my nonna, but she died, in the 70s. Either way, I digress. But they all immigrated in the 40s or 50s to Argentina after the war. My grandfather was from Yugoslavia, and my father was raised in Argentina. So the dirty war. Why are we talking about this? Either way, what the moral of the story here? Club Mate, it's like a German, it's basically mate cocido, but like with carbonation and sugar. Now, this whole thing, Egor Demin, I don't know why he's not starting right here, because he is going to start in front of Ben Seraph, who Ben Seraph and Nolan Traore and Egor Demin, if you guys were following the whole pre-draft cycle, they all have big question marks around them. Ben Seraph, it's more like he's kind of a bigger Vasilija Micic, and I'm a big Vasi fan. Okay, love me some Vasi, but athletically, is he going to be enough? And will the shooting be consistent enough to be more? Like, I'm scared, and I don't want to compare like Euro to Euro, but is he going to be more than something that's in between Tomas Stanorowski and Vasilija Micic? Or is he going to be someone who can be sort of like a Sergio Rodriguez, Jose Calderon type guy? This is like what the expectation probably for a guy like him. Nolan Traore gives me like DJ Augustine vibes. I know some people, Colleen Hayes. I think Egor's probably the best one. And imagine a lineup of Egor, Terrence Mann. Once they move Cam Thomas, we expect. And same thing, I think Haywood Highsmith will eventually get moved. I don't know what's going to go with Nick Claxton. He's on a long-term contract. But the lob potential of Claxton, Deron Sharp, even the pick and pop with Danny Wolf, and even having Michael Porter Jr. be able to create off is going to be great for a guy like Egor. And Egor is a guy that I thought I disabled my ad blocker, but I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. We did not. But Egor is someone, in my opinion, here is my scouting report that I wrote last year. Go check out my work there. And as all these ads have just came in to attack us, he was someone 6'9", 7-foot wingspan, just under 200 pounds, average 11 points, 4 rebounds, and almost 6 assists a night at BYU, shooting 41% from the field, 70% from the field. His father was a pro player, having played for Russia. And we had said he was one of the best live dribble passers, just stationary passers at a level that it's cerebral. He was someone who's averaging almost 1 point per possession on the pick and rolls, especially in transition as the ball handler. And that's something in a league today where we live that I think we saw it in this game a lot of the time. You have him as a cutter right there, knowing how to get behind the defense, especially going baseline. I think that's something huge, especially him being 6'9" and being able to play. And this was something that I said, at worst comes to worst, this guy, he could like be sort of like a slob wizard, similar to Josh Giddey on OKC if the point guard role doesn't work out. But I think he's showing enough that, hey, I think this is something. And if we look at his free throw jumper right here, I think he shows pretty solid form. right there, flick of the wrist, falls through well. It looks tucked in, and that's the biggest thing when you're shooting. You want, as you guys will notice, I have a really fucked up pinky. This is what happens when your coach just says you can pull it back into place, and that's what you do. You never get the pinky looked at, but either way, so really you just want to be able to get it over there, and he has a really tucked in shot, and it seems consistent. He's putting it also higher, which is huge. Being able to keep it there, falling over his right knee, I think is something that's huge. And look how big this lineup is. Cam Thomas being what 6'4", the smallest guy out there, and then they have themselves what Mr. Terrence Mann, I guess, is also like 6'5", but still like Jordi Fernandez, who's a fantastic coach, is going to have a lot of opportunity and creativity to play with some really long lineups. And I think having shooters, if we go back at this lineup, regardless of what happens with Cam Thomas, I think Terrence Mann's going to have a better year than people expect. He's kind of a toolsy guy. Having lob threats like Claxton and Deron Sharp is swell. I think that's awesome. And then Danny Wolf being a pick and pop to change the pace, a lob option. Drake Powell, I think Zaire Williams and Noah Clowney can also be lob options. Michael Porter Jr. will be more of a three-point guy. Same thing with Haywood Highsmith, or a transition player. And Jalen Wilson, Tyrese Martin, same thing. Now Kobe Buffkin, I don't know how that's all going to go because they're still looking like they're figuring the back end. I don't know, Wilson or Tyrese. It seems like maybe Martin doesn't. I know Wilson has a little bit more guaranteed money, but it's again minuscule for the both of them. So when I look at that, I definitely think this is going to be very interesting for a guy like Egor. But people don't realize that this was a guy that was considered the wonderkin, the best prospect for Real Madrid since Luka Doncic. And then he unexpectedly went to BYU, which I don't think, and obviously like Luka was way better at his age. Luka had already won MVP and was like ahead of him. And I'm not comparing him to Luka, but I'm just giving people clarity that like when people was like, oh, they took such a risky prospect. They took a guy who was like expected to be the next like top tier prospect for one of the best basketball clubs outside of America. So I think that says a lot and is something that people need to put into consideration when we're discussing guys like Egor and Mr. the Brooklyn Nets. So, I hope this audio sounds fine. But if you guys made it to the end of the video, let me know your thoughts. That's basically it from me. Let me know what you guys thought about this little style that I did right here. I don't think it's the best, but it was just a quick way to do it. That was also not the right way to end this.